And the number one regret that people had by far was, I wish that I would have had the courage to live the life that I knew I was supposed to live. And I regret not having listened to those inner voices inside, those callings inside. And I hopefully by the time this morning's talk is over, that you'll have a sense of that you don't have to listen to anyone else's, that there is something that we all share. It's in each and every one of us that if you listen to it and let yourself be guided by it, you'll fulfill a dharma that you signed up for. Yeah, I've been up since 20 to 5. I already ran 4 miles this morning and meditated for 1 hour. And been going over what I want to speak about today, and finally decided about 7:30 or so to just turn it all over to God. My name is Wayne Dyer. I just turned 75 6 days ago. Wow. Can you believe that? Yeah. Amazing. It's hard for me to even imagine. 75. And I have sex almost every day. Amazing. Yeah. Almost on Monday, almost on Tuesday, almost on Wednesday. At 75, almost is just fine. Someone sent me a picture of Lao Tzu here. Many of you may know that I wrote a book, Living as a Taoist, for a year back when I turned 65. It's 10 years ago now. And it was really one of the great years of my life. A very powerful calling. But I just thought this was so amusing. It said, I always debate about whether to do this, and I'm doing it. So, it says it's only when a mosquito lands on your testicles that you realize there is always a way to solve problems without using violence. So, I love that. I don't know. I'm going to open with a, excuse me, I'll get my throat cleared here. That's not so nice when you, as my daughter would say, ew, gross, Dad, please. I should probably tell you, I have 8 children. 2 of them are here with me. 6 daughters and 2 sons. They've been probably my greatest teachers in my life. Throughout the years, whenever I would raise my voice or do anything that was inconsistent with what was written in my books or what I said on television, they would stand up, put their hands on their hips, and say, I wonder what all those people would think of Mr. Positive if they could see him here this morning. And so they've kept me really grounded. I think the best line I ever heard from any of my kids was from my daughter Summer when she was 13, and her sister Serena was 11. And my wife had decided to go away for 30 days in silence, and I never really understood why until she was gone. She went to an ashram out in San Francisco and said, you won't be able to call me, you won't be able to talk to me, I'm just going to not have any talk at all. We had 5 children in 8 years, so it was right after that she decided that, and all of the kids were sitting around the table at breakfast, and at that time we had 5 of them in the same school, from pre-K to 1st grade, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 7th grade. It was just the way it happened. And Serena was sitting over here, and I was over making breakfast at the toaster, making waffles. It's a really easy way. Little Eggo things, you just stick them in there, and it's like, this isn't the way Mom makes them. I said, well. All of a sudden, I heard Summer say to Serena, who was 11, if you didn't have any feet, would you wear shoes? And Serena, this was about 6 o'clock in the morning, can hardly stand anyone at 6 a.m. She said, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. What are you talking about? If I didn't have any feet, would I wear shoes? That's so stupid. Of course not. And Summer said, hey, look, don't yell at me. I'm just wondering why you're wearing that bra. I don't understand it. So, I ran right over, wrote it all down, and it's been a grand time. It's and now they're my youngest is 24, and or 25, and my oldest is 46, and it's really been quite a trip, really a wonderful one. I received a birthday card from one of my daughters who said, the nicest compliment she said I could pay to you is that she said, everyone likes to be around you and wants to be around you, even though you want your silence and your space to study. But she said, but especially, she said, your children, they love being with you and being around you. She said, that says more to me about what kind of a man you are and what kind of a father you've been. So it still warmed my heart to think of that. And it's true. Being with my children is my great joy in my life. Yeah. It's just amazing, though. You think that you get to a certain time or a certain place in your life, and these desires, these burning desires, these voices inside of your head that keep prompting you in one direction or another, they don't shut down. And my life has really been about listening to those inner callings, those inner voices that have been directing the whole show since I showed up here in 1940. Callings that I've been unable to resist. And I think it's something that all of us share, but we don't really listen to it. We often listen to the voices of other people directing what our life should be and how it should be dictated. I read a book a few years back by a woman named Bronnie Ware. She was a hospice nurse in Australia. And so she took care of people who were just getting ready to pass over. These are angels. These are saints, these people, the way they work. Because I know my mom passed away. It'll be 3 years this July 22nd. And the last week or so of her life, she was in hospice care. And it was just an amazing thing to watch, a beautiful time. My mom and I had talked a lot about this whole concept of this thing called death that we're all so terrified of and know nothing about and awaits all of us. Although I'm not certain of that any longer. I'm really not. I don't really believe that. I think we've just been victims of a collective consciousness, mass hypnosis, believing that certain kinds of things have to happen. This is a very mysterious, powerful universe, and we're all infinite beings within it. And I'm going to talk a lot about that here today. But anyway, Bronnie would interview all of the people who were in the hospice care, and she would ask them what were their regrets. What is it that you regretted? And she interviewed over 800 people that she had escorted beyond this path. And the number one regret that people had by far was, I wish that I would have had the courage to live the life that I knew I was supposed to live. And I regret not having listened to those inner voices inside, those callings inside. And I hopefully by the time this morning's talk is over, that you'll have a sense of that you don't have to listen to anyone else's, that there is something that we all share. It's in each and every one of us that if you listen to it and let yourself be guided by it, you'll fulfill a dharma that you signed up for. I've spent a lot of time in the last 6 months, 8 months or so, doing studying and also being around very, very young children, like newborns. My daughter Serena just had a new baby. And the woman who works with me and for me as my assistant has 2 children under the age of 2.5. One was just born about 8 weeks ago. And as a matter of fact, we put out a request on the internet for people, for parents, particularly or grandparents, who've ever had any conversations with a child who's just beginning to talk, and asking them where they come from. I do this all the time now, even with little Shiloh, who is only 10 weeks old. I ask her about God every day. I said, I know you know. I know you know. And the most amazing thing is that this huge smile comes over her face every single time that I ask her that. It's like, those of you who've been around newborns, you know that there's an intelligence there. We come in with personalities. My goodness, I have 8 children, all of whom have the same parents and very, very different personalities, every one of them. Shiloh's older brother, his name is Marcus, the mom said to him one morning, I said, talk to him about this. He's just coming up with a vocabulary. He only speaks in one word. He doesn't even put 2 words together yet. He's not even 2. Talk to him about God, and about heaven and about the past and where were you and what is it like? And because, the famous poet William Wordsworth from England said, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. Heaven lies about us in our infancy. In our infancy, it's like, I love that. Our birth, we're born, it's just a forgetting. A sleep. Heaven lies about us in our infancy. And so she asked him one day, he was giving him a bath and all of that, and she said, Marcus, pardon?
It's on. Let me go see what you're doing back there.
All right. Oh, there we go. Nice job. So she said to him, I don't know when I'm going to say that again. They're going to turn this thing off. She said, tell me, what is God like? What is he like? What is it like? And he put his hands up in the air like this. He went like this. And he said, light. Light. Isn't that amazing? And that's why this talk is called I Am Light. And so I put that story out on my Facebook page. And you can look it up on Wayne Dyer Facebook, which has close to 3 million people on it. So, and we ask for any comments from people from all over the world. And this thing goes, everywhere, every country in the world. And we ask for any conversations that you've had or any indications of what children have said to you. And we got almost 3,000 responses. And we sort of chronicled them and put them all together and putting it out into a book that's coming out in the fall. It's called Memories of Heaven. And one of the things that I'm really pretty much convinced of after reading so many of these and putting them all together, and I wrote something about each one of these myself, is that probably the most common thing that people said is that children have said that they chose their parents, that I picked you, and they give evidence for it. We have almost more evidence now for something called reincarnation than we have against it. There's a book that I just read called Soul Survivor, if you haven't read it. It's about a little boy who reincarnated as a Iwo Jima fighter pilot during World War II. And the details that this little child, this little boy, has of everything that took place there and who he was at that time, and was killed there on Iwo Jima. And so they contacted the other 4 or 5 people that were on that same squadron, in that fighter pilot squadron. And 2 or 3 of them were still alive. They were in their 90s now, 85, 90 years old. And he was able to give them by name, and even the nicknames that they were given. And so, it just went on and on and on. It's just an amazing thing. It's like, so that the awareness. I used to tell my daughter Serena, when she would complain to me about what kind of job I was doing as her father, which she was really good at, pointing this out and pointing that out, and you said this on Oprah, and now you're not doing that, and you said this and that. It's like, and finally, I just had it with her. She was, 7, 6 years old. I said, that's just. I said, you know what? If you don't like the kind of parent that I am, the kind of job that I'm doing as a father, then you should just, you should stop blaming me for it, and you should take responsibility for it yourself. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, before you ever came here, you had to have a father, and you had to have a mother, and you get to do the choosing in there. You picked me to be your father. And I was kind of joking at the time, but now after listening to all those responses and getting to be 75, I am absolutely convinced that there's some real elemental, strong truth to this. She said to me, you mean to tell me that I actually picked you? That's what you're trying to tell me, that I picked you to be my father? I said, exactly. And when you're making important decisions like that, you should really take your time. She said, I must have been in a hurry. I said, that's your problem. You're always in a hurry. You're not. So this idea of light, it's a very, very powerful idea. And also this thing called burning desires. But before I even get into that, I watched a video about 6 months ago or so. It was recorded in January of this year, of 2015. And let me just read you a little bit of this. It said, this is from the Hubble telescope. Now the Hubble telescope is in orbit around the Earth, about 320 miles above the Earth. And it has got the most powerful telescope ever assembled. They're putting together one now that's going to be out in 2022 that's going to be 1 million miles in orbit around the Earth, 1 million miles out and around, and taking photographs of our neighbors and this universe. And I want to open, because what I'm going to be talking about is just so mystical and mysterious and phenomenal when you have this awareness of who you are and this universe that you're a part of, that every time I watch this thing, I am just stupefied by it. You wouldn't want to watch this stoned, I'm telling you. It's just, whoa, this is. The largest NASA Hubble Space Telescope image ever assembled is the sweeping view of a portion of the Andromeda Galaxy, which is our nearest galactic neighbor. Now, the Andromeda Galaxy is the closest galaxy to us. We're in the Milky Way galaxy. It's 2.5 million light years from here, which is the distance that light travels in 2.5 million years. And light travels at 186,000 miles per second. And what I'm going to show you is a little corner of the Andromeda Galaxy outside of our, first time a picture of a galaxy outside of the Milky Way has ever been shown. And what you're going to see as you watch this, it's only 2.5 minutes, but I just want you to just put yourself into a space of appreciating the magnitude of this universe and the mystery of this universe, because they estimate that there are 100 billion galaxies, and we're in a universe that just doesn't ever end, which means it also never began. It is beginningless, it is endless. And every tiny little dot that you see on there represents a solar system with sun and moons, just like the one that we're in. And you'll see several million of them as it scans through it. It's just so mind-boggling. So here it is. Here's just a look at the magnitude of this universe that all of us are a part of. Go ahead, you can play it. Oh, I got to get out to watch this. Am I blocking you? Oh my goodness. This is one little space, one little piece of that galaxy. Every dot is a solar system. Well, an endless number of galaxies, an endless number of solar systems, and where are we? On this little rock spinning around. And when you put it into perspective and try to just come to some kind of an understanding of an awareness that there's an intelligence in this universe that we share. Whatever it is that is the creative source of all of it is also in each and every one of us. And when we begin to put into perspective and begin to understand the magnitude of what it means to be in an endless, beginningless space. I was at a celebration in Hana. I live on Maui. Thank you, by the way. I have a beautiful place there, and I know you laugh, but I really do mean thank you. I'm in deep gratitude for. I would never have been able to do such a thing. I come from very poor beginnings, orphanage type beginnings, and now that I live there, and I thank each and every one of you, every book that you've ever purchased, or every time you've ever watched something that I created, I'm always in deep gratitude to everything and everyone that is out there. I think gratitude is a very important place to be in all of ourselves for all of life. At any rate, I was out in Hana, which in Hawaiian means heaven, and it's on the other side of where I live on Maui. And we were celebrating an event. We started about 7 o'clock in the evening, and we went till 7 o'clock the next morning. And it was an Ayahuasca ceremony. And about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I went outside and I laid on the grass, and I was looking up at what we just saw there, just a tiny little piece of it, only in just restricted to this solar system. And one of the things about this ceremony is that people they play music all night long, from 7 o'clock till next. And people bring their guitars and they bring flutes, and it's just this wonderful, glorious sort of celebration of going within and making conscious contact with God. And somebody came out and they sang a song. They were just strumming along and they sang the song. And the song was a song written by India Ari. And the song is called I Am Light. And as I was listening to that song, I was thinking, truly, that's what we are. That's what each and every one of us are. I've had so many burning desires in my life. And in the last year or so, it's almost like I've been back in school studying for something. Maybe I just have no idea what it is, but it's just been calling me to really look at some very deep and powerful literature. One of them is this book that I carry this thing all the way with me. I mean, it weighs 10 pounds, I think, and I was called to read this thing, and I studied it day in and day out. It's called Vasistha Yoga. I'll do a little reading from it a little bit later on. It was written thousands of years ago, and it taught me about something called infinite consciousness, which is what we just looked at, that space between all of those heavenly bodies that are out there. So I was reading that, and when I finished that, and I underlined it, if you take a look at what I read with this thing, it's like every single page I've written notes on, and the back of it I've just got notes. And I don't even know what I'm studying for. It's just one of these callings. I mean, I've had them my whole life, and I'll share a few of them with you. I shared a whole bunch of them in a book that I wrote called I Can See Clearly Now, which is really sort of a memoir of all of the significant moments and people and things that showed up in my life. But anyway, so I was reading this, and then I was directed to something that I've had in my home for about the last 25 years or so. and I picked it up 25 years ago. It's called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. It's 6 volumes. I left 4 of them in the hotel, but I want to quote from 2. These are 2 of them. This is volume 2 and volume 4. And I started reading volume 1, and when I was younger, I would look at a book like that, I'd flick through it, read a few pages, and then I'd put it away. But this was a different kind of a calling. And in this, let me get the right page here. In volume 4 of The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, this was Baird Spalding, who took a group of about 30 people on a tour of the Far East up near Nepal and in the Himalayas and so on. And they met these people who were considered to be masters, who live at a higher level of consciousness. They're outside of their bodies. They've made a real disconnect to their bodies, that these bodies are not really who we are. The mantra that I do in my meditation this morning is something called Isha Kriya. The mantra is, I am not my body. I am not even my mind. I am not my body. I am not even my mind. Try saying that internally to yourself on each in-breath, and then with each out-breath, and being conscious of that, so that it's designed to help you to separate yourself from your identification with this body of ours, which is not who we are at all. And so I was reading, I got to volume 4, and I think it's on page 154. It said, back of all things is light. For in the beginning was light. The light became the life of man. Even our material scientists say that light is the foundation of all manifest form. So even if you took your body and broke it down to its tiniest subatomic processes, you would find that it is light. It said, when we go back to the center of anything, it is pure light. And this is the inner light of which Jesus spoke. It is the light of illumination. And that night, on that ayahuasca ceremony, oh, I love that. Tell us about God. I know you know. You better tell me. I know you know. Get over here. Let me see that smile. Oh, so precious. What a miracle that is, huh? So, my daughter, Skye, who sings, she has her CD here, Letting Go. She's been singing with me since she was about 8 years old on stages all over the world. I called her up that morning after the ayahuasca ceremony. I know you're wondering about ayahuasca, but I'll let you look that one up and decide for yourselves about it. It's not a drug, so in case you're concerned about it. This is a body that is as pure as it's ever been in my life. It is not only pure of alcohol and drugs, but it is pure of things like sugar. And by the way, I am well, I am healed, I am cancer-free. And I think when we begin to understand who we are internally, one of the best things that we can do is to put it to work by going to work on our own temple that we reside in for these few moments that we're here in this infinite universe. The power of your mind to make this body work at the highest level it possibly can be, and even to let go of the aging process. I truly feel younger and stronger and smarter in every single way than I have perhaps ever since I was maybe even my teenage years. And it's a tribute to shifting to a higher level of consciousness and aligning myself with this infinite spirit that is in everything and everywhere. It's what's holding this whole thing together. So I called my daughter Skye up and I said, honey, this song just blew me away. I had never heard it before. And it's very interesting because just shortly after that, I got a note from India Ari herself asking if she could come to a seminar that I was giving in Maui. I said, I'd like you to learn this song. And I'd like you to sing it at the beginning of my seminar. So she learned it just a few months ago. And I'm inviting her to come right here on the stage right now and sing it for you, if you'd like that. Get out here. Here's my beautiful daughter, Skye Dyer. Love you so much.
Hello, everyone. As my dad said, I'm going to sing a beautiful song for you guys. I love India.Arie, and when he called me about this song, I was really happy because I never know what he's going to ask me to sing.
Right.
But this song really, really touches me, and I hope it does for all of you. I am light, I am light. 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 I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. Oh, I am light. I am light. I'm not the mistakes that I have made or any of the things that caused me pain. I am not the pieces of the dreams I left behind. I am light. 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 Oh, I am light. I am light. I am not the color of my eyes. I am not my skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. Is all light. Is all light. Is all light. I am 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 divinity defined. I am a God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. It's so beautiful. You're the best. I am light.
Wow.
So the last couple of years of my life have just involved me just going into a whole new area that I don't even know how to explain it, honestly. I'm as mystified by it, and I'm talking in front of thousands of people as if I'm in my home just talking to one of my kids about it, but it's the thing that I want to talk to you about is something inside of you called these things called a desire, a burning desire. These internal knowings that there's something calling you to something in your life. And I received a notice to read this book. And this has been happening to me so much. I mean, I spent a lot of years in graduate school, 12 years, studying. But I was always studying because I was going to take an exam, and I was going to try to get through the course and get on to the next and get the degree and get the passage to the next level and to the next level. It was always like something that was being imposed upon me. And what has happened now is that I know that there is something working in this universe that's in each and every one of us. And I was directed to read this book. How it happened, it doesn't matter anymore. The book is called The Impersonal Life. And it was written in 1914, 100 years ago. Written by a man named Joseph Benner, who was a Lutheran minister in Akron, Ohio, in the United States. And it was published under the name Anonymous, because as a Lutheran minister, what he was writing, he would have been excommunicated from the Lutheran Church, because it was not consistent with what the teachings of the church have become since Martin Luther posted those 95 Theses on the door back in the 16th century. It was channeled writing, automatic writing. I know about channeled writing. I've done it. I wrote a book called The Power of Intention, which came through me. It wasn't, I don't even take credit for it. I take the royalties, but I don't take, I don't take credit for it. It was written at a time of deep despair in my life. My wife and I had separated, and we still remain separated, but still married after 15 years. It was probably the lowest point in my life, and that low point was the motivation, I think, to move to a higher and higher place. I became more compassionate. I became kinder. And when I was going back, when I was writing, I can see clearly now, I lined up all of the books. I've written 44 books. I lined them all up and then kind of went through what was going on in my life at that time. And when I came to The Power of Intention, which I wrote about 2000, 2001, I couldn't believe how good it was. I said, this guy is really smart. This is a really good book. And I started reading the whole thing over again. And I thought, if I had to sit down and write that now, I just couldn't do it. It was just, I know about automatic writing. I've read the Course in Miracles. It's channeled writing. I've read the Urantia book. I've read the entire Urantia book. I don't know if you've ever seen the Urantia book, but it's, you need a crane to carry it around with you. This is, and this little book, now I got on a plane to fly here from Maui, and I read it for the 9th time. I've been keeping track of how many times I've read it because I know I'm being directed to write something else. I don't know if it's my last book, I don't know, but I know that I'm being prepared for it. And I'm listening to it. I'm listening to this interior voice that is not directing me to do things because of any grade that I might get or because of any money that I might make or any whatever it might be, some external kind of desire. It's the fulfillment of something inside of me that feels like it has to come out. It has to. And the way that it works is just, and all of you have had these kind of synchronistic, serendipitous kinds of experiences. But the question becomes, do you listen to them or not? I'm not any different than the rest of you. I mean, I always tell people, what I want you to do is everybody just look at your hands, if you will. Everybody just take a look at your 10 fingers. And realize that tonight when you go home, I want you to talk to your fingers and tell tell your fingernails to stop growing. And we laugh at how absurd that is, isn't it? You know, because as Lao Tzu said, you're not really doing anything, you're just being done. You know. And you have an awareness of this when you look at your body. If you believe that you're your body, you realize that you have no control over this thing whatsoever. It's just on its way. It's just doing whatever it's going to do. I have a picture of myself on the wall when I was 20 years old, and there's not one cell of that body that is left in this body. And yet I thought that's who I was, and I think this is who I am as well. But if you look at, and let's say there's 3,000 people in here tonight, that means that there's 30,000 fingers in this room tonight. And there is some intelligence that is growing all 30,000 of those fingernails. It's something that each and every one of us share. It's something called the impersonal part of yourself. It is something that not only that, but there's about 6 billion people on the planet. That means 60 billion fingers. We don't have an individual special source or God that is taking care of this person and not taking care of that. There is something impersonal that we all share, and it is something that connects us all in a very big way. And in 1940, when Joseph Benner passed away, his wife, that was the year I was born, his wife decided that she wanted to continue to have this book published, but she thought by now that he was gone, that it would be appropriate to put his name on it. And I don't bring these here with me to sell, which I could, but I think it's something that if you really are interested and it excites you and you want to do, then you need to take action on it. It's more than just having a thought, oh, that would be interesting to me, but to literally begin to take action on what it is going on. When I found out that I was diagnosed with leukemia, I really decided to use my interior processing, this invisibleness that is within us, within me, to put my body into perfect health, the maximum health. So ridding myself of sugars and gluten and all of those kinds of things, and back and exercising, getting back to yoga and all of the kinds of things. It was like, it was an awareness that I have something inside of me that is capable of creating absolute miracles, if only I'll listen to it. But most of us aren't willing to listen to it. I posted something on my Facebook page last week that my daughter had sent me. It was a 2-minute video, and I asked people to watch it. And it was a video of a family in Sweden. Family of four people, mother, father, and 2 children. And what they did is they measured the amount of pesticides and fungicides that were in the body by doing urine samples of everybody in the family. And then they took everything out of their home that they ate, and they replaced everything with organic. Everything was organic. No pesticides of any kind. And then they did the same measurement. They showed the kids coming out with their little cup of pee, and they measured, and they did the whole thing. And they showed that about 97 to 98% of all of the pesticides and fungicides were removed from their bodies in 2 weeks. All right? And they lived in Sweden, where they don't even allow GMOs. So I posted that on my Facebook page, and I got several hundred, maybe several thousand comments on it, and I was going through reading them, and about 90% of the comments were, it's too expensive, there's no way that I can do that, that's just not something that's possible for us, and so on. And I was thinking, it's like, that is so typical of why things don't work for people, is because having a knowing that ridding ourselves of these kinds of things that are so deleterious to our health ought to be like the highest priority that we have. If I have to take this little corner of my garage and put a special light in there and grow organic lettuce or something, that I'm willing to do that rather than to just allow myself. And if enough of us begin to shift, and that's just a tiny little example, of the kinds of things, the kinds of attitudes that we have about, oh, it's going to be too difficult, or I can't make it happen, or that's not possible for me, or it's just too expensive. And very often we put a price tag on all the things that we can't do and we can't afford. And it comes up with, I wrote a whole book about this called Excuses Be Gone, where we just create an internal kind of mindset that we're not powerful enough, or that we're not strong enough, or we don't have the wherewithal or the ability or whatever it might be to do it. So in reading The Impersonal Life, I've gone through this thing. I mean, it is, I can almost quote this thing verbatim. What he talks about is that we have our personality, and our personality, all of the things about us that are personal, represent our five senses. Everything that we experience with our senses. If I can hear it, if I can touch it, if I can see it, if I can smell it and feel it, then it is, something that is personal. But everything else that is taking place in our life, and I'd like you to really think about this, is that every single desire that is placed into your internal consciousness is not placed there by your personal self. It is placed there by the same intelligence that is growing your fingernails, that is beating your heart, that is growing your hair, that is digesting your food, that is this invisible, formless, beginningless, endless, infinite intelligence that is within each and every one of us, and it includes every single desire, which especially when we move it to our burning desires, that is these things inside of us that we feel that if I don't do them, then I'm not going to be fulfilling what I'm here for, the light that I am. I've had so many of these in my life. I always ask to have a rose put up here, and that's so beautiful. One of my favorite poets. When we go to the Holy Land in the fall, I'm going to go to the place in Konya in Turkey. I'm taking a special plane to go to this holy place in Konya, where Mevlana, which is, if you speak Farsi, anybody here speak Farsi? I know there's somebody here. Mevlana. What does Mevlana mean? Mevlana, our master. Yeah. Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, the great Persian poet. He said, and I'm going to his burial place where he and Shams of Tabriz are buried in Konya. It's a very, very holy place. I have a calling to get there. I used to say before I leave this planet, but you know what? I'm not even sure we have to leave this planet. I'm not convinced of that, not 100% yet convinced of that. But he said, what was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest when I met you. And he was speaking about God. What was said to the rose, something invisible was said to the rose. Anais Nin, the famous writer, novelist, she said, and the day came when the risk of remaining tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. That there is something, and this lady over here who is so lovely and so nice, and said hello to me, I'd like to give you this rose. There you are, my dear. God bless you. Enjoy. So, these things called burning desires that bring you to the highest place. The highest place is a place of divine love. That's the love that Rumi was speaking about. This this consciousness within us that just wants to celebrate and just wants to be in a loving place. It's calling us and directing us. And I find myself changing and shifting and doing things now that I, at one time, would never have even considered doing. I was standing at an elevator just a few weeks ago, actually about a week ago, and I was going to get on the elevator, and as the door was open and it was holding the door there was a man, an older man. I found out he's younger than I am, but he looked and acted a lot older. Turns out almost everybody's younger than I am now. But anyway, he was struggling with a chair, and he was bringing the chair in from outside from his car, and it was like a bar stool type chair, and he was carrying it in and all out of breath, and he had a cast on his hand, and he was very overweight, and I said something about the chair. He said, yeah. He said, I got 6 more of them in the car, 5 more in the car. I have 6 of these things to carry in. And I'm getting on the elevator, and then that voice inside that says, you can serve here. This is an opportunity to make somebody's life better. This is, or to just assist someone. Whereas for probably 99% of my life, I would not have considered stopping where I was going. I had an appointment. I had to be someplace else. I had all of these kind of things to get it. And instead, I was going back and forth between the elevator, the doors, going back and forth. Make up your mind, and it's like, and I go in and I go, and finally I just ran out and I went and took the other 5 chairs. I said, here, you take it easy, and I'll go get the chairs for you. And I don't say that to you because I want you to think that I'm so wonderful. I say that to you because there is this kind of thing that is consistently asking us to do a loving thing. And this is how this impersonal self speaks to you. The impersonal life is written like this. It's a conversation between the impersonal part of you that is growing your fingernails and is beating your heart and is placing desires into your consciousness and brought you into this world. And T.S. Eliot, very famous poet, said, we shall not cease from exploration, but at the end of all of our exploring will be to return to the place from which we originated and to know it for the first time. That we all originate from the same place. And it's not really a place, it's just an invisible, infinite intelligence. And just ask yourself the question, what is a desire? I can't get a hold of it, I can't see it, I can't touch it, I can't feel it, I can't experience it. It's just something that's in me. But I don't put it there because my personal self doesn't have the power to do such a thing. It doesn't even know what a thought is. We can go into the brain, our scientific mind can go into the brain, and we can find the command center in the brain, the tiny little places in the very different parts of the brain, and say, this is where a desire comes from. This is where that thought comes from. I think I'll wiggle my finger. And then the thought happens, and then you wiggle your finger. But there's no scientific measuring device has ever been able to find the commander in the command center that says, I think I'll wiggle my finger. I think I'll move my toe. I think I'll write this book. I think I'll do that. It's something that's a part of the infinity of this universe. And coming to an awareness of that and understanding that, probably two of the most significant callings that took place in my life, I wrote about in I Can See Clearly Now. One of them occurred when in 1974, at the age of 34. And I was sent by some kind of a burning desire. Now, these desires that I've had in my life have have really been, as I look back here, and now since it's been a few years since I wrote this, as I look back now I was just thinking about this the other night, and I got up and started jotting down, like, what was directing me in my 20s? Was it me that said after I joined the Navy and I was overseas on Guam and that I wanted to go to school, I wanted to become a teacher, and that nothing could stop me. I mean, it's like, and I didn't have the high school background for it. I didn't have the grades for it. I was a screw-off in school. I went when I felt like it, and if class didn't interest me, I didn't go. I was an average student unless I really loved the class, and I went right through with straight A's. And there was something inside of me that was said, like in my 20s, you have to do this. And so I figured out a way to get accepted at a university, which involved all kinds of manipulations and so on. But when I think now, it's like, what was it? What was that thing inside of me that said, this is what you have to do? No one in my family had ever even gone to a university or even thought about a university. And when I got on that campus, it was like, I want a bachelor's degree, no, I want to get a master's degree, no, I'm going to get a doctorate degree. It was like this thing that pulls you. And then when it was time to write, and when I wrote my first book with Erroneous Sounds, like taking it across the country myself, taking responsibility for all of it. It's been going on and on and on throughout my life. And now I figure 75, shit, this is it. That's enough, all right? Enough with the burning desires, relax, just sit down. I picked up Rolling Stone magazine at the airport in Seattle on my way here, and there's a picture of David Letterman on the cover, and he's retiring in a few days. And I know David. He interviewed me when he substituted for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show 2 or 3 times back in the 70s and early 80s. And he's talking about, I've done all these shows, and I'm so tired, and I just don't have the energy to do that anymore. And I'm thinking, hell, you're only 68, I'm out here 75. I leave here. I speak in Ottawa. After I go to Ottawa, I go to Moncton. After I go to Moncton, I go to Newfoundland. I go to Montreal. And I'm just getting warmed up. I'm going to Australia this year, going to the Holy Land. I'm speaking in London on the 1st of October. I mean, it's like, and I've got more energy than I... This thing, I want you to really get this. And you're not getting out of here till you do, all right? We have to stay here for a week. But this impersonal life, the same thing that's growing all of our fingernails is placing desires in every single one of us, and placed a desire in you before you even showed up here on this planet. And it's, there's just too many people who wrote too many stories about too many children who have talked about making these choices. Too many poets have written too many poems about the infiniteness of the universe. That we're not these bodies. These bodies are just, I am not this body, Emily Dickinson. I do a lot of poetry because I write a lot of poetry and I read a lot of poetry. But Emily Dickinson, one of my all-time favorite poets, she's called the Belle of Amherst from Amherst, Massachusetts. She's holding up a handful of dust. She said, "This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies and lads and girls, was laughter and ability and sighing and frocks and curls. This passive place, a summer's nimble mansion where bloom and bees fulfilled their oriental circuit, then ceased like these." When my mother was cremated, my lovely mother, who's from Canada, Hamilton, Ontario. They handed us this urn, and I said to my 2 brothers, I said, surely this isn't Mother. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. That carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. That was Emily also. This, and Longfellow's, the Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returneth, was not written of the soul. You have an invisible, infinite intelligence that showed up in an infinite universe that has, at last count, and who could count, 100 billion galaxies. Do you think there's really an end to this universe? If there is, I'd like you to tell me what's there. What's at the end? Is there a wall there? And if there is, how did it get there? And more important, what's on the other side? This concept of infinity is mind-boggling. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern. William Blake, one of my all-time favorite poets. William Blake. Infinite. That came from William Blake, and a man named Aldous Huxley wrote an essay back in the 1950s called The Doors of Perception. And there was a musician named Jim Morrison who read that and said, there are things that are known, and there are things that are unknown. And in between are what? The doors. The doors. That's where it came from. That's why they named it the doors. I am the door, said Jesus, that opens to infinity. You yourself are beginningless and endless. And back in 1974, on August the 30th, my life was out of control. I was drinking, doing drugs. I was a professor at a university. I was about probably 30 pounds overweight or more. Eating greasy cheeseburgers. I'd written 3 textbooks. But I really wanted to write sort of a common sense guide to how to help people to improve the quality of their life and so on. But I couldn't, it just wasn't there. The writing just didn't show up. I was in a terrible relationship. Things were not working very well for me. I had a 9-year-old daughter, 8-year-old daughter at that time. No, 1970. No, I'm ahead of myself. She was only 3 years old. And I was called to my father's grave. My father was also from Canada. You don't need to applaud that one. From London, Ontario. He abandoned his family. My mother had 3 children, 3 boys under the age of 4 by the time she was 23 or 24 years old. And there was a depression in the world, and it was the 1930s. And he just took off. He'd spent quite a bit of time in prison. He was a thief. He was a womanizer. When my mother brought me home from the hospital in May of 1940, he had moved out and left my oldest brother, Jim, who was 4, with my next oldest brother, Dave, who was 16 months old, and had left Jim in charge of Dave, a 4-year-old. And Jim was that kind of person who was responsible, still is. And he moved in with another woman in Ann Arbor, Michigan, just about 30 miles from home. My mother came home to that with me. And he abandoned not only us, but he did it to 6 other women in his life. All I ever heard about my father, because I lived in a series of foster homes in Orphan until I was 10, until my mother was able to get her family back together, her boys back together, when she remarried my father in a different body, another alcoholic, abusive man. Because life gives exams, and if you don't pass it, it's like algebra. You got to take it over till you get it. And anyway, I grew up with, I didn't even know what a father was until I was 7. I had never even heard the word. I just lived in a place where there were no fathers, and just a lot of kids and mothers trying to figure out a way to support them. And I was being taken care of by the state of Michigan at that time. And so at any rate, I spent a big part of my youth being angry about my father, trying to find him. My 2 brothers couldn't care less. My oldest brother remembered him. He wasn't interested at all because he was violent and drunk most of the time. But I had a calling. I had a feeling about this, and it would bother my mother terribly how I just wanted to know more. And I went looking for him, and I would try to find it. I even went to his mother, my grandmother, who I had never even met. I went to her funeral when I was 15 years old and volunteered to be a pallbearer just so that I could meet my father. And he didn't show up. He was down in Alabama someplace. And he didn't show up because he knew that my mother would have thrown him back in jail because he hadn't paid any support. And so it's one of those stories, all right? But that's not the purpose of the story. Because I still feel my father. I did a film about him called My Greatest Teacher. I think he was one of the greatest teachers in my life. And I feel his presence, even right now, even in this moment that I'm speaking to you, I feel his presence. And so somehow, and I don't have time to go through it, I write about it and I can see clearly now, and in another book that I wrote a while back called You'll See It When You Believe It. I ended up at his grave. It was mystical, it was spiritual, it was divine, it was impossible. There was no way that I could have been there. And I ended up right, and he was buried, and he died in New Orleans. His body was shipped to Biloxi, Mississippi. He was buried in a pauper's grave for indigents. And I got down there and found him on the 30th of August, 1974, when my life it wasn't going in the direction that I signed up for. And this intelligence has a way of, this impersonal part of us has a way of moving us in the direction that we need to go. And I stood there, I went to his grave site, and I really went there to piss on his grave. I did. I was just so filled with rage towards this. That was what I wanted to do. That's where I was in 1974 at the age of 34. And I got there, I saw this marker on the ground amongst a whole bunch of other ones. Melvin Lyle Dyer, 1914 to 1964. He was 49 years old, died of cirrhosis of the liver. And I cursed him, and I talked to him. I stood there alone for about 3 hours, just sobbing, because it was the end of a long journey for me. And a very important one. This is something you got to get. It's like this thing called a burning desire. My 2 brothers didn't have that. For me, this thing inside that says, go in this direction, do this, go for that, you have to be willing to listen to that. And not only you have to be willing to listen to it, but you have to be determined to follow through on what this thing is doing. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. It's why I'm here tonight. It's why I'm struggling in the sense of wondering, why have I read this book 9 complete times now? And every time I read it, it's like reading a brand new book. What's the message here? And can I write like this? From my highest self talking to my personal self, my impersonal self, the part that we all share, that places these desires in there. Can I listen to that? Am I willing? Am I determined? Am I fearless? Because you all have them. We all have them. If you're not in the shape that your body belongs to be in, you're not listening to something. There's something in there telling you, there's something awaiting you called perfect health. It's there for you. Listen. Act on it. Don't be afraid of it. There's something calling you to a dharma, a fulfillment of some kind of a purpose in your life that if you don't fulfill it, you're going to be like one of those people that Ronnie talked about in the hospice. I wish I would have had the courage to live the life that I knew I was destined to live instead of the one that somebody else laid out for me. Very often our families. I always tell people your friends are God's way of apologizing for your relatives, you know. Because they're out there telling you what you should be, and this is how you have to do it, and this is what it means. It's the cause of so much internal stress, family stress, community stress, wars on our planet, people trying to dictate to other people what their dharma ought to be. It's what Lao Tzu, it's why he wrote the Tao Te Ching. It's why he left the warring states 2,500 years ago and dictated the Tao Te Ching, which translates to the great life, the great way, the book of living the great way, the Tao Te Ching. He said he was just so tired of people not fulfilling, and wanting to kill each other and wanting to hurt each other, isn't it? I mean, it's like every single day, how much more news can we take about how many people want to hurt each other and kill each other and so on? We're doing it over and over and over again. And we need, in reading, another thing I was reading in the last couple of months is Thomas Troward, he was an English writer, a judge. He talked about this, that every single one of us who has an influence and reaches millions of people, and I'm one of them, I know, obviously, that every single thought that you have impacts, the whole planet. That we need a Christ consciousness on our planet again. We need an awareness that there's something called human love, which is a love that changes and varies. I love you today, but not as much yesterday. You forgot my birthday. I don't love you now. It's like human love, changes and varies. And then there's a spiritual love, which is a love that never changes, but it varies. It's the love like we have for our children and for our mates and so on. It's it never changes. It doesn't matter what you do. I'm still going to love you, but it varies. Some days it's high, some days it's low. But the love is always there. But that's not the love I'm speaking about. It's another kind of love. It's called divine love. And divine love is Christ consciousness love. It's Siddhi consciousness love. It's a love that never changes, a love that never varies. It's one I aspire to. I'm getting better at it all the time. It's why I went out of the elevator and brought in 5 more chairs for that old man. And he was just in shock. He had no idea. He said, I've never heard of this. You going and doing all of this for me and having him sit down. He still couldn't get over it. He was, even when I walked away and went upstairs, he was just like, I just don't understand that. I put all the chairs in the elevator. He went to the 3rd floor, carried them to his place. And that kind of a love, the kind of love that I often illustrate with the orange, if you were to squeeze this orange, and ask you, what will happen if you squeeze this orange? What will come out? What will come out? Juice, right? But not just any juice, orange juice. And why? When you squeeze an orange, does orange juice come out? Because that's what's inside. And it doesn't matter who squeezes it. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter what instrument you use. When you squeeze an orange, you get out of it what's inside. And if you extend that metaphor to yourself, and someone squeezes you, puts pressure on you, says something about you don't like, offends you, whatever it might be, and out of you comes anger and rage and hate and bitterness and tension and fear and all of the stuff that you think other people are causing because of the time of day or the instrument that they used or whatever. It's just one grand illusion. They said of Jesus, when he would go into a village, just his presence in the village and nothing more would elevate the consciousness of everyone in the village. Because that's all that would come out of him. One of the great heroes in my life is St. Francis of Assisi. I've written a lot about him, been to Assisi 3 times, wrote a book there called There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. Took the lines of his famous prayer and made each of them a chapter. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is sadness, where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Light, because we are light. There's something that's in every one of us. And I aspire to divine love. And I really believe that's what we all signed up for. And as a people, as a place, a planet, one tiny little blip in this infinite universe of trillions and trillions and trillions of solar bodies and heavenly bodies out there, that the understanding of the infinite nature of who we are. And I stand at my father's grave filled with that rage, that hatred, that anger, and feeling like I had finally accomplished, I'd finally found him even though he was dead. And he had been dead 10 years and I didn't even know that. He died in 64. I got back into my rent-a-car to drive to New Orleans, to the airport. It's about 60, 70 miles. The fall semester was going to start September the 15th at St. John's University, where I was an associate professor. And so I had 2 weeks. I got back in the car, put on my lap belt, started to back the car out of this field. And something said, go back. Now this, I'm telling you right now, this is the most significant moment, I think, of my entire life. And I don't know what it was, but it's something that I've learned to not ignore and to pay attention to. And not only have I learned it, but I've been doing it my whole life. Just not listening to, E.E. Cummings said, to be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you just like everybody else, means to fight the greatest battle there is to fight and never stop fighting. There's something in us. Unfortunately, not enough people pay attention to it. And I guess that's why I have the mic tonight, because I have paid attention to that and followed my own inner dictates. And I went back. I remember it. I can tell you what I was wearing. I can tell you it was about 7:45 in the evening. It was just getting dark. And I went back, and this is what came out of my mouth. Every word of this is true. Everything that I say is true. I don't speak lies any longer. I said, from this moment on, I send you love. Who am I? Who am I to tell you what you should or shouldn't have done? You did what you knew how to do, given the conditions of your life. And I'm sending you love from here on in. I'm done with this rage, this hatred, this anger. I'm done with it. Because I used to wake up in dreams just like sweating and just so deeply in pain. I got back in the car. it was like this huge weight had been lifted off of me. All of the anger, all of the hatred, all of that stuff inside that has nothing to do with divine love, which is the opposite of love. I got in the car, returned at the airport, flew up to New York, and I took all of the notes that I had been accumulating for the previous 3 or 4 years, and the tapes of the lectures that I had given at the university, because I was taping it, because I knew I was going to write something. I didn't know what or how, just like right now. I know I'm going to write something that is a conversation between your impersonal self, or my impersonal self, and my personal self. Somehow this is the format, because it just when I tell you this thing thrills me when I read it, and I'll read a little portion of it a little later on. It's the idea that there is an impersonal part of me that is even giving this talk right now. It's even giving me the desire to say it this way instead of that way, that my personal self can't do this. I can't even pick a thought. I can't create one. They're out there. It's like Lao Tzu said, you're not doing anything, you're just being done. He also said, you're not thinking anything, you're just being thought. The thoughts are just out there, and you get to just pick the ones that are on a big conveyor belt. You pick the ones that work for you. I left, I got up to New York, I got on another plane the next day, and I flew down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I rented a car. I went to the Spindrift Motel on A1A between Oakland Park and Sunrise Boulevard. And I checked into the hotel with this big baggage of notes, and I didn't come out for 14 days, hardly at all. I would just go across to the ocean and swim right across the street from the ocean. And I wrote a book called Your Erroneous Zones in 14 days, beginning to end. And everything in my life changed. Everything turned around. It was like Mark Twain said that forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. On the heel that has crushed it. It's like it still sends love because that's what's inside. Because that's all that's inside. I started running and exercising. I gave up alcohol. There's been no alcohol in my body for some decades now. My relationships changed. I met my wife, and all of these beautiful children began to show up. Erroneous Zones became like the top-selling book in the world. Today, there's about 130 million of them in print, 47 languages around the world. It was a total transformation. So whatever you've got going on inside of you that needs forgiveness, I urge you to do so. And I could tell many, many stories, but I'm conscious of the time and how much I still want to cover yet. So getting that out. But the other experience, the other burning desire experience occurred just a few years later, in 1976, 2 years later. Erroneous Zones, I had it in my hand now. And I was on the Long Island Expressway, driving from my home in Huntington, New York, into the university. I was about to be granted something called tenure, which is like a job security for life. Anybody who was a professor at that time, or even at this time, knows the game, publish or perish. I had published, I had written 3 textbooks, many articles. I was playing the game, and I had written this book, and I was on my way to get a full professorship. I was just in line for that. It was coming right up. And tenure, 36 years of age, tenure for the rest of my life. And I was in my Volkswagen, and I pulled off on the shoulder of the road because something inside of me was saying, do you really want to be in that same office doing the same thing for the rest of your life? I've always said, I didn't want to live 90 years. I mean, I didn't want to live 1 year 90 times, over and over and over again. I know how to do this. I've done this. I've been doing it for 6 years. I've done the professor role. I've been in academic world, and again, it was that voice. Voice isn't the right word. There's no voice. It was just an overwhelming internal knowing, and knowing that I can go either way. That two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the one less traveled by, said Robert Frost, and that has made all the difference, all the difference. This is the road most traveled by. You get to a place where you can get tenure, you grab it. You got a job for life. And I grew up with a very big fear of being broke, not having enough money, poverty consciousness where I lived in. My mother lived in it, and a depression mentality. And giving up tenure, giving up all your benefits, having to pay your own insurance and all of those kind of things. That was one hand, and the other was like this knowing. This knowing that was the same knowing that I had, when I was 16 years old and sat down and wrote an entire novel. Because I just had to write. I had to write. Writing was just something, it wasn't something I am. It's something I do. It's something that I am. It's just, I have to write. I write all the time. I was writing this morning. Being willing, being determined, being fearless. It's all laid out there for us, what we'd like to do. And this burning desire is something that I've infused in my children. One of my daughters, my oldest daughter, who's here today, for the first time in Canada, she went to Michigan State University, got herself a degree, a couple of majors, studied communications, studied advertising, had a good job. She was working for Best Buy. She had benefits. She had tenure. She had all of the stuff that everybody wanted. She was an executive. She was making good money. And we talked, daily. And it was always, Dad, she said, I feel like I got to do something. I got to design. I just really feel I want to create my own. I just want to do it my way. I don't want, And I would always tell her, if designing is what you want to do, if that's what you really want to do, then you could let it go. And she said, yeah, that's easy for you to say. You're rich, But, what if it doesn't work? What if this? I said, well, those are the things. It's like, and this doesn't just go for, by the way, for employment. This goes for everything in your life. I mean, it goes for whether you're going to help the guy on the elevator or not. I mean, there's this constant thing. This impersonal life is with you. It's always growing your fingernails. And it's always placing desires into your heart. And to think about this, folks, your ego convinces you that you're the one who puts those desires into your head, but your physical body isn't capable of even doing that, even creating or manufacturing a thought, let alone a desire, let alone a burning desire. It's placed there by the same intelligence that is holding it all together. The endlessness of it all is you, beginningless, endless. And I said to her, if you want to design, if you want to do, I'll help you out, but you're going to have to, there's risk involved in it. But she said, she's obsessed with these things, these plastic water bottles, When she read a story about a floating 1,000 miles across mass in the Pacific Ocean, 2 of them now, 1,000 miles across, filled with floating plastic. Something like 3 million bottles an hour of plastic are consumed in the world today. And this stuff is not biodegradable. It doesn't, you throw it into the ocean, it's going to be there thousands of years from now. What are we doing to our planet? And she's always been very green and very conscious of that. And so she had the courage to behaving myself, you notice? And she started her own company. It's called Urban Junket. She makes out of recycled plastic water bottles the linings of her purses. She's here. She brought them here. It's the first time she's ever been able to bring them into Canada through all of the endless bureaucracy you have to go to get them. Anyway. And it's called Urban Junket. And this, I guess this is a backpack, but it's just, I mean, it's gone from a very small business that she started on herself to creating these wonderful products. She creates purses with things in them that charge your cell phone when you're out all day long. You'll see, she's going to be here for the entire weekend. There's a lady here that just gave me a copy of a magazine, a bridal magazine, where it featured my daughter's wedding in it. Where are you? Gay, I think. Is that your name, Gay? Come on up here, sweetheart. Thank you for that lovely gift you gave me this morning. And I'd like to give you this from Urban Junket. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. God bless you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Anyway, you'll see she's got wonderful, beautiful. And now her business is doing well, and she comes to my seminars and she talks to people about, you know, how she turned. Her name is Tracy, right over there, Tracy Dyer. She's, yeah, my baby. So, if everything is infinite, these things. Well, I'm very nervous about that one. This is not what I'm really good at. If God, we're going to call this invisible intelligence God. You can call it the Tao. That's what Lao Tzu called it. Call it God, divine mind, light, Brahman, whatever it is. There's endless names for it. The opening line of the Tao Te Ching says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. As soon as you put a name on it, you've got two-ness. The Tao is oneness. God is oneness. No opposites. So you got a thing and the name for it, you got two. So you have to move to just oneness. If God is the creative source of everything, this is from Deepak Chopra's new book, The Memory of God, or not the memory of God, the what? No, that's a different one. That's brand new, anyway, whatever it is. He's got enough publicity, the hell with him. No. Only kidding, Deepak, I love you, man. Meditate, Wayne, meditate. We toured the world together. We had a lot of fun. If God is the creative source of everything, and God is in us, because there's no place that it is not, it's an invisible intelligence that is the source of all creation, then the creative source of everything is also in us. Imagine that. The creative source of everything is in you, which means what Jesus said is really true. Even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things. You have the capacity. What happened? Oh, look at this. Beautiful ladies. Thank you. If they fall now, Molly, you're in big trouble. They're fine. I print these up because when you look at them, every time you look at it, you'll read it. And that's how you change your subconscious programming. By endlessly repeating something over and over to yourself again, and then catching yourself with a new idea. And then when the new idea is, when you begin to realize it, then you make amends. You go back and you correct the behavior. You change the behavior. And that's how it works in in overcoming alcoholism and so on, in the sobriety movement, it's like you make amends. You don't just have a new thought. You recognize that the creative source of everything is in you, so that everything that any great or divine spiritual master has ever been able to accomplish or do, you have the power within you to do that as well. Because you're not this body. You get yourself convinced that you're this body. But remember, Muktananda, one of the great teachers in India, said when he was by his devotees asked, "What is real, Master? What is real?" His answer was always the same. And in all the spiritual literature that I have been having just thrown at me in the last 6 months or so, that's like I spend 6-7 hours a day in this stuff. They all say the same thing. That is real, which never changes. The only thing that is real is that which is eternal, which is infinite. Everything else isn't real, because the minute that you think this is who you are, and then you look at it here, now it's different than what it was, because it's constantly in a state of change, it's not real. There's something that is changeless. There's something that is beginningless. There is something that is endless. And I'm going to show you how it works with this. When I was reading Vasistha's Yoga, which is one of probably the great challenges of my life. They say at the beginning of this, in fact, Muktananda has the introduction to it. The Yoga Vasistha is a unique work of Indian philosophy. It is highly respected for its practical mysticism. The study of this great scripture alone can surely help one to attain to God consciousness. For aspirants of the highest beatitude, the Yoga Vasistha is like nectar. It is a storehouse of wisdom. It is the teaching of the sage Vasistha imparted to Lord Rama. It contains true understanding about the creation of the world. It's like someone said in writing a review of this, I read, there's 67 reviews of this on Amazon. One of the reviews said, if all of the spiritual texts that had ever been written were all disappeared, were all thrown away, and this survived, it would be enough to understand the spiritual nature of our world. And I got it from, who would like this one? Here you go, sweetheart. That's for you. That's yours. So this is a clay pot. And this pot was made for me. Underneath here it says, to Dad. I can't even hardly read it, most of it, but at the bottom part of it says, you've been my joy, my inspiration, I love you, and I made this for you. And she was a student at Montevallo University in Alabama, and she made me this clay pot. And when I was reading Vasistha's Yoga, I was just fascinated by the constant reference to a clay pot. And what it says is, like, if I were to ask you, what is it that makes this thing up? What is it that constitutes, how do you get a clay pot? What is this thing, what is it made of? What makes it be? So it's got clay, and it's got a covering over it, and it's got paint over it, skin over that, and you say, well, that's what makes this pot a pot. And I say, well, if we were to take this hammer, or take a hammer, and to hit this clay pot like that, all of the pieces would be there, but there would be no clay pot. So it must be something more than just the material that makes it up. What else is necessary in order for this clay pot to become a clay pot? It's the space, the silent, invisible, empty space inside. And without that silent, invisible, empty space inside, you can never have a clay pot. All right? And so as you think about what it takes, Vasistha calls this infinite consciousness, or the closest approximation we can come to it is something called space. And Vasistha says over and over and over again, just as space is unconcerned with all of the clouds that manifest within it, so too is infinite consciousness unconcerned with whatever manifests within it. It is just always there. So the absolute necessity is the space inside for this pot to exist. Now, the pot absolutely has to have the space in order to exist. But the space doesn't need the pot in order for it to exist, because the space is what? It's infinite and it's everywhere, all right? So that's the metaphor. Now, you now become the clay pot. That is your body. Your body is made up of a whole bunch of stuff. And just like we could take and make 1,000 pieces out of this clay pot and lay it down there, we wouldn't have a clay pot. We can take all of the rivers of fluids, all of the bones, all of the hair, all of the muscles, all of the organs, and we could just slice it all up and lay it right here, and there would be no you. You are not this body. You are not the stuff that keeps you alive. You're not the organs. You're not the rivers of fluids. You're not the bones. You're none of that. All of that stuff is just inert chemical stuff that gets repositioned and then reconfigured and turns into what Emily Dickinson called this quiet dust. Life is real, life is earnest, the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returneth, was not written of the soul, you see. So now what we've got to see is that what it takes in order for us to exist is the very same thing that it takes for this pot to exist. It must have an invisible, silent, empty, infinite space inside in order for it to exist. Otherwise, there's no you. You are not the things that make up your body. And it is absurd to think that this pot began, the ability to have this pot began when it was all configured like my daughter did it a few years back, because the space which is required to make this thing exist has always been there. And so it doesn't exist when it is born, when it is created. The space is always there. And the same thing is true for you. You did not begin when your body showed up here, however many years ago it showed up here. And it can never end when it no longer ceases to exist. Because the infinite intelligence, or what they call consciousness, infinite consciousness is something that is always there. It's such a knowing that I have now. It's such a comforting knowing that the idea of having an infinite awareness, an infinite consciousness that nothing can destroy, any more than you can take space and try to do something with it and hurt it and carve it up. You can't do that to space. You can't do that to infinite consciousness. And just as space is unconcerned with all of the clouds that keep showing up, the dark ones, the light ones, the cumulus ones, the stratus ones, the nimbocumulus ones, whatever, all of the different things that I learned when I was in the 7th grade with Mr. Missig in science class, and the big clouds and the dark clouds, it doesn't make any difference. They show up, they manifest, and then they dissolve, and then they go. Infinite consciousness is that's the closest you can get to. That's what I got out of this. Out of studying this and studying for 70 days, I read 10 pages a day. That's the most I could handle. I want to do one little reading from it. Would you like to hear it? Yeah, I think you'll love it. Even if you don't, I got the mic, I'm doing it, all right? A deer, D-E-E-R, a deer known as the mind. This is your mind. Because not only are you not your body, now we'll make the case for you're not your mind either. You are infinite consciousness that had this body just show up in it. And infinite consciousness is unconcerned with you. It's impersonal. It's non-local. It doesn't show favors. It's everywhere. If you ever wonder how you're connected to the people that you see in the street that are strangers, just remind yourself that the fingernail god is working with them as well. The hair god, although I give up on the hair god, all right? But the hair god doesn't care where it shows up, so now I get it in my nose, my ears. Doesn't care. My shoulders, I can do really well on my shoulders. What the hell do I need hair on my shoulders for? But try to grasp this in terms of your mind. Because, folks, this isn't just a sort of a waxing around in philosophical mysticism. This is like a very practical, complete awareness of the divinity that you are. And when you listen with willingness and determination and fearlessness to everything that has been laid out there for you, there are absolutely no limits. You can heal yourself and others. All you have to do is see the perfection or the Christ in the person that you would like to heal. That's how Jesus did it. By just going to that perfection and going to a place of oneness, which I'll speak about in a moment. A deer, known as the mind, which has been wandering in the wilderness of countless concepts, notions, and prejudices, and which somehow finds the right path, takes shelter under this tree. The deer is pursued by its many enemies who covet its hide or its covering. It hides itself in thorny bushes known as the body in an attempt to save itself. All this effort wears out its energies, running hither and thither in the forest of samsara, which means the coming and going of things. This life, next life, and so on. This deer, pursued by its many enemies as the body in an attempt to save itself, all this effort wears out its energies, running hither and thither in the forest of samsara, harassed by the winds known as vasana, or latent tendencies, and scorched by the heat of ego. The deer is afflicted by interminable distress. This deer is not easily satisfied with what it gets. Its cravings multiply, and it continues to go out far in search of satisfaction of those cravings. It gets attached to the many pleasure centers known as wife, children, etc. And it wears itself out in looking after them. It is caught in the net of wealth, and it struggles to free itself. In this struggle, it falls down again and again and injures itself. Borne down by the current of craving, it is carried far away. It is haunted and hunted by innumerable ailments. It is also trapped by the different sense experiences. It is bewildered by its alternate rise to the heavenly regions and its fall into the hell. It is crushed and wounded by the stones and rocks known as mental modifications and evil qualities. To remedy all of these, it conjures up by its own intellect various codes of conduct which prove ineffectual. It has no knowledge of the self or of the infinite consciousness, which is what it is. This deer, known as the mind, is made insensible by the poisonous exhalation of the snake, known as worldly pleasure and craving for such pleasures. It is burnt by the fire of anger. It is dried up by worries and anxieties. It is pursued by the tiger known as poverty. It falls into the pit of attachment. its heart is broken by the frustration of its own pride. At some stage, this deer turns away from all of this and seeks the refuge of some tree already described, the tree of meditation. And there it shines brightly. Supreme peace or bliss is not attained in any other condition but the unconditioned state of consciousness. And this is attained only in the shade of the tree known as samadhi, or meditation, or Christ consciousness. This mind of ours, it pursues, it tries so hard, and it doesn't recognize, it fails to recognize that inside each and every one of us is something called a soul. And your soul, and you can be an atheist or an agnostic, or you can be a religious person, you can be anything, but there is still an invisibleness within each and every one of us that we need a name for it, so we call it the soul. And the soul, the thing about the soul is that it is infinite. But we, because our bodies, which is what we are so identified with, and what we can accomplish and what we can do and what we can't do and what's wrong and what's right and what all of this, we identify ourselves exclusively on the basis of this body, forgetting that if we just had God inside of us, that our bodies would absolutely perform perfectly, majestically, without any struggle whatsoever. If we just could get to an awareness of the infinite consciousness which we manifested into, which is totally unconcerned with who we are. It's impersonal. So your soul, I wrote out, the ideal of the soul, your soul, this infinite interiority of yours, the thing that it asks for is neither knowledge or light or happiness. The ideal of the soul is space. It needs to expand. That's the nature of infinite. See, what's the opposite of the word infinite? Finite. 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 Finished. It begins here, it stops here. This is finite. This is finite. Everything that you can touch, see, all of this is finite. But there is something inside of us that resists being put in a box, being told what to do. Before I had any children, I had 8 theories about how to raise children. Now I have 8 children and no theories about how to raise children. But one of the things I know for sure about raising children, 8 children, is that nobody likes being told what to do. The little child that says, "You're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do," that isn't a bratty child just being disrespectful to an older person. That is the speech of the soul, saying, "Don't put me in a box. Don't put a leash on me. Well, there's a theme song for the soul. It was sung by Gene Autry many years ago. Bing Crosby also recorded it. Oh, give me land, lots of land, and the starry skies above. Let me ride through the wide open spaces that I love. Don't fence me in. Don't put me in a box. Don't tell me what to do. I have something that can't be stopped. The nature of infinite consciousness, the nature of space, is that it is always progressing, it is always going, because the minute that it stops, it's no longer infinite, it's finite. You got it in a box. And you can put your body in a box, That's quite an image, isn't it? But you can't do that to the infinite consciousness is what you are. Even animals don't want to be put, animals have a soul. They don't want to put into a box. I got a little video. It's 2.5 minutes. This is one of the greatest videos I've ever seen, all right? This is a cat. A cat. And this cat, it's somebody trying to put a leash on a cat and take it for a walk. It's a true, let's turn the lights down, put this on, show this. This is one of the most hilarious things. I got to watch it again. Oh, I can go back here. Oh, yeah.
You're fat, boy. You're so fat. Oh, he's just giving up on me.
This is great.
Monkey. Come on. Let's go for a walk. He's four. Come on. Let's go for a walk. Let's go. Monkey, come on. Steve.
This cat has not been drugged, okay?
Monkey.
Stand and move.
You're too good. You're too good. Come on. Seriously, dude? Come on, stand up. Stand up. Okay.
This is your kid saying, don't fence me in. You got to see the end of this.
Tail's right between the legs.
He's purring. What's with this? What is with this? No. Come on, stand up.
Well, I won't even try to stand up.
Monkey. Come on. There you go. See, you can support yourself. All right, let's watch the magical transformation. He's cured!
Isn't that great? That is such a great image. That's such a great image for you. This idea, and that's why I show it, because that's something you'll remember when you hear what somebody telling you, or when somebody else is telling you, this is how you should do it, this is what you should be. And so there's something inside of us that fights being put into a box, put on a leash, being fenced in, being told what to do. Your soul always has to be expanding. And this is something I've really come to understand, because I thought when you get to be 3/4 of a century old, then you can just sit down and relax, and you don't. And yet there's this something inside here that says, I got to keep expanding. I've got to keep. Your soul needs to expand. It needs to grow. Just like the whole universe, it's in a constant state of movement and going and growing. And now, number 3. Woo. Don't come out here, Molly. I know it's crooked. This is the words of Jesus, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 6:22. The light of the body, compulsive. Thank you. You feel better now, Molly? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Thank you. Get out of here. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, the whole body shall be light. Now, I must have read that 25, 30 times before it finally began to hit on me what it was talking about. And it wasn't until I was reading in Vasistha Yoga and in the Life and Teachings, Volume 5 of the Masters of the Far East, that it was clearly explained to me. William Blake, over here about infinite, also said, to see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand and infinity in an hour, we are all led to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. That's your soul, sleeping in beams of formless, beginningless, endless light. So when the eye stops seeing opposites, good, bad, right, wrong, male, female, east, west, and begins to fuse the dichotomies, which is what the Bhagavad Gita teaches, and all of the great spiritual texts teach, is that you have to come to a place of oneness. And imagine yourself, when you leave this corporeal, physical world that you're in, that all you will experience is love. It's what holds the universe together. And that means there is no opposite. It's almost impossible for us as physical beings to comprehend no opposites because we live in a world of two-ness. Let me see if I have it here. I do. Here's from the book of St. Thomas that was found at Nag Hammadi in 1945 in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is Jesus speaking. This is carbon dated to the time of Jesus, whereas many of the words of Jesus from the New Testament are 120 or so years after the death of Jesus. All right? This is carbon dated to the words of Jesus. When you make the two one, and when you make the inner as the outer, and the outer as the inner, and the above as the below, and when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male will not be male and the female not be female, then shall you enter the kingdom. Oneness. I tell people, imagine you lived on the sun, all right? 93.1 million miles from Earth, all right? Which is next door compared to that galaxy I showed you a couple hours ago. Imagine you lived on the sun. You got asbestos or something, okay? It's hot, I know. If you lived on the sun, would you have a concept of darkness? Think about it. The reason you can't have a concept of darkness when you are on the sun is because the sun is the source of all light. When you are with the source, there are no opposites. There's only one, light. The source of love is infinite consciousness. God, the Tao, divine mind, infinite spirit, whatever you want to call it. When you are with your source, that's why meditation is such an important and powerful concept, because that's where you can go. That's why I truly, no exaggeration, meditate 2 hours a day now. 2 hours every day. And it's in those moments of meditation when I realize I am not my body, I'm not even my mind, that I am with my source, that beginningless, endless source, there is no opposite. And that's why divine love is defined as it doesn't change and it doesn't vary. It's like the orange. It's all that there is inside. And when you can get to that place where you can only see love, it means that you are living in harmony with your source. And when you're living in harmony with your source, opposites don't occur. Now go back and look at what Jesus said in Matthew 6:22. When the light of the body is the eye, and if therefore thine eye, if your eye be single, that is, only sees one, only sees oneness, that's when the whole body shall be filled with light. That's when you'll recognize your true essence, which is not here as a human being having a spiritual experience. It's the reverse. You're here as an infinite spiritual being having a temporary human experience. And that is, I can just say to you at the age of 75, that is such a knowing for me that it almost makes me cry when I contemplate it, because in those moments of, it's like divine bliss, where you have this knowing that you're infinite, that nothing can harm you, that you don't have to put your attention and your thoughts on anything other than what you intend absolutely to manifest, and that you have this power. I've written 2 books on manifesting, and I've been an incredible manifester in my life. But I have an awareness that all I have to do is get myself aligned totally with my source of being, and all I ever see is love. And all the rest of it, it's like when you are elevating yourself to this level of consciousness, what you can do is, Siddhartha, who was Buddha as a young man, when Siddhartha was walking with Govinda, his partner, his cohort, and he was fasting, something that I do regularly now. Govinda said to him, Siddhartha, brother, what good is hunger? I mean, what good is fasting? And Siddhartha said, I can laugh at hunger. I can laugh at hunger. In other words, there are divine spiritual beings who can get themselves elevated to a place where they can live on a couple of grains of rice a day and a glass of water. There are some that can do it even without food. And I've studied these people. I mean, these are not just me using words up here. You can go on the internet, read Yogananda's biography. He talks about some of these people that he met. That you can get yourself to such a place of divine love that all of this other physical stuff is not even necessary. So when I'm reading, I just looked at the time. I just can't believe that. And I always say that they said this to me I heard this morning in my meditation. I'll put you on that stage and time will not exist for you. It will be gone. I can't believe I've been speaking almost 2.5 hours. It just, for some of you may be thinking, what the hell, I thought it was 6, but something happens. It's like, just trust. The opening line that I often use when I'm being introduced in the side says, from the Course in Miracles, if you knew who walked beside you At all times, on this path that you have chosen, you could never experience fear or doubt again. And that's what when I got up early this morning, 20 to 5, and was thinking about, oh, why am I doing? I got to go on stage. I got to talk. What if I forget this and I don't have that? All of that shit, that's talk, that stuff that goes through my head, And then it's like I get this overwhelming feeling. It's like, you're not going to give this talk. Get your ego out of this thing. You're not this talk. You're not whether you're well received or not well received. I'll take care of all of that. And if you think having to talk for 2.5 hours is a lot, it'll go by in 5 minutes. And it has. But I'm not done yet. I have one more poster. And I have this to tell you. While I was reading, there are 18 chapters in the Impersonal Life. It doesn't surprise me. That number 18, for those of you who know Hebrew, what does the number 18 mean? Anyone? Light, life, Chaim, L'chaim, life, 18. It's the magic number. 1, infinite source, 8. 1, notice how often 18 shows up. You'll see it in your life. Go to a golf course if you don't believe me. I read the Bhagavad Gita, 18 verses. So then I became a Taoist, another calling for a year. I turned 65 years old. I gave up everything that I had. Gave up all my clothes, gave up my apartment, all of the things that I had owned and had treasured and so on. Furniture, all of it. Gave it all away. And went to Maui to live and study the Tao for a year at the urging of my friend Stuart Wilde, who passed away 2 years ago. And living as a Taoist, so I open up the Tao Te Ching. I'm going to read the Tao Te Ching. Guess how many verses are in the Tao Te Ching? 81. Infinite source once. 18 verses. Impersonal life. 1, 8. Anyway, I'm up to. I've been reading this thing. This is a few months ago. Maybe a year now. And I'm up to chapter 16, and now it's Friday morning. And I'm reading, because I can't wait to get to chapter 17, which is called Finding Me. Finding Me. Because I was asking myself all the time while I'm reading this over and over again, because it's my impersonal self speaking to my personal self, reminding my personal self that that's just an ego, believing that I am what I have and what I do and what other people think of me and all of that kind of thing. But the impersonal part of me is saying, all of those desires that you've had and all of the thoughts that you have, they're all placed there by me, by the same intelligence that's growing your fingernails, the same intelligence that's keeping the planets in alignment, that opens the flowers, the roses, and so on. I said, I want to know it. I want to know my impersonal self. I want to connect with it. How do I do it? So it's Friday morning, and I said, I'm going to read this today. I was reading a chapter a day at the beginning of this. Now I read the book on a flight. All right. It's Friday morning. My kids are coming on the weekend, some of them. And one of the things they like when they come to visit me in Maui, they like cash. My kids like cash. There's 2 of them over there right now. And there's 6 more who like it just as much. So I go to the bank, and on Friday, I said, it's 9 o'clock. I want to read this. I'm very excited about chapter 17. But I also have this thing that I've been doing for about 3 years now, which is when I go to the bank, there's a woman there, her name is Cheyenne, and she has 3 children under the age of 4, just like my mother. She has a husband who has diabetes very seriously. By the way, that's something that 1 out of every 3 of you will have by the year I turn 100, which is 2040, 25 years from now. It's 1 out of 4 now. It'll be 1 out of 3, unless we decide to do something about that. And you don't have to be one of those. Same with autism, same with Alzheimer's. All of these dramatic changes that have been taking place in our physical beingness is all reversible. And it's going to begin with you aligning yourself with your source of being and then living from a place of perfect health, which is actually not only not difficult, it's joyful to have the kind of energy and excitement, regardless of what the age of your bones are. So what I have been doing for several years, because I don't know Cheyenne any place but at the bank, but I've met her outside in the parking lot a few times coming in, and I've met her husband, and he's very much overweight, and he's on insulin and all of the kinds of things, and she's got twins and a little girl, and it's not an easy life. She's a teller at a bank trying to support all of this. So for 3 years or so now, when I go to I always make sure I get there when she's there. Because a couple of times I've gotten there and she's on break or something, so I think about her before I go. And also, so I go in and I take whatever checks I have and whatever banking business I have, and then they give me back cash. And I always take a couple of $100s and I put it under her keyboard. And put it under there. And it's so weird because I always hide when I do it because there's cameras everywhere. I don't know if it's legal or not legal. I don't know if she's allowed to take this or not, but I've been doing it for so long that, it's just a way of being. And she just smiles. I always lean over the counter, give her a little kiss on the cheek, and I place this under. I said, take care of the kids, and say, take care of your husband. And that's what I do on Fridays. I'm only telling you this for a reason. I don't want applause for it. It's not because I'm so generous or whatever. I'm fortunate and blessed because of you to be able to do such a thing and have that kind of money. And then there's a dry cleaning store where there's a woman in there. Her name is Randy, and she's very wide and very short, and also very sick, and also has a husband who's sick. And I always stop in there, and I slip her $100 or I buy her something, but usually I just give her money. And one time, I've been doing this for a long time too, she just looked at me and she said, "Are you God?" And I said, "Randy, yes, I am." I said, "And so are you." I said, "The only difference," I said, "between you and I is that I know it and you don't believe it. But yeah, we're all God. We all come from, we have to be like what we came from." And that's what, every time you use the word "I am," you're using the word of God. That's what the bush that wasn't being consumed said to Moses, in the Torah, in Exodus 3:18. My name is I am that I am, and that shall be my name for all future generations. So every time you use the word "I am," you have to be very careful. In the book of Joel, it says, "Let the weak man say, I am strong." Never say, "I am depressed." That's blasphemy. That's because Moses, when it was given the name, God didn't say, "My name is, I hope things work out for you." He said, "My name is I am that." That's why I did a meditation there on I am that, on that I amness. And so I just kind of kibitz with it, and I get back, and it's now, and the reason that I went at 9 o'clock, because I know that Randy and Cheyenne will both be there. And that's what motivated me, because I could go to the bank anytime during the day, it doesn't make any difference. But I wanted to be sure that they would be there to receive what I think they need and probably have become a bit dependent upon. But even if they have or haven't, it doesn't matter. It's about that. And then I come up and I pick up chapter 7, and I sit down, and every burning desire that we have, and the burning desire to do that, isn't placed there by my personal self. You got to get that. It's placed there by that impersonal self that you're so familiar with, or you should be every time you look in the mirror and see what it's doing to your body. So here's what it says, and I gasp. It says, "The best and the surest way you may know me being your impersonal self, is when selfless love fills your heart and there is a strong, compelling urge to help someone, to heal their ills, to relieve their suffering, to bring them happiness, to point out the true way, that is the actual feel of me within you, pushing the personality aside, using your mind and body for the purpose I created them, as avenues for the expression of my real nature, which is perfect love, the Christ of God, the one vitalizing, quickening, life-giving, strengthening, healing, all-supplying, all-informing power in the universe. If you will devote but 1 hour each day to me alone, imagining and practicing the presence of me within you, your impersonal self within you, I hereby promise you that you will not only soon, very soon, find me, but I will be to you an exhaustless fount of such wisdom and strength and help as your human mind now cannot possibly conceive. If you will but seek me, thus making me first, your I am presence within you first, never resting until you find me, it will not be long before you will become conscious of my presence, of my loving voice, speaking constantly from out of the depths of your heart. That loving voice has been speaking to me for 65 to 70 years. It has been guiding and directing everything that I've done, from leaving the university to writing books. Like the first 5 books I wrote, when I did I Can See Clearly Now, the first 5 books that I wrote, I went through the index of those books. The name God, Spirit, Higher Consciousness, Divine Love, any of that was mentioned once in 5 books. The next book had 39 references to God, Spirit, or Higher Consciousness, and the next book had it in the title. And I never once ever sat down and said, okay, I've written enough about psychology, it's time for me to move into spirituality, and that isn't the way it works. The impersonal self places this intelligence in there and is directing. The question always becomes whether or not you are willing to listen with willingness, determination, and fearlessness. Because just like your body was laid out there for you, and in a sense you're doomed to live in the body that you were given in this incarnation, you also have many choices that you can make about how that body is going to function. Yeah, I'm in a body that's 6'1" and it's Caucasian and it's got blue eyes and it's got all, this is what it looks like. But I can allow it to get out of shape, I can allow it to get sick, I can allow it to pass away, or I can use my infinite consciousness. And the same thing is true of everything that isn't your body, because this is the final thing from the impersonal self. When you have found the kingdom, you will likewise find your place in it, realizing now that you are in truth one of my divine attributes, that you are an attribute of this divine intelligence or God, just like any cell in your body is an attribute of you. Every cell in your pancreas and in your liver and in your nose and in your eyes has you in it. And its purpose is to let go of its individuality and to function in harmony with the whole that is you. You are an attribute of God. And your purpose is exactly the same as an individual cell within you, to let go of your ego, your personality. And when you don't do that, then you're a cancer cell, like in your body, which is so selfish that it wants to gobble up the cell next to it and the cell next to it instead of cooperate with the oneness that you are. The same is true of us. We are attributes of an impersonal self. And our goal is to let go of our individual ego and to function in harmony with this source. When you have found the kingdom, you will likewise find your place in it, realizing now that you are in truth one of my divine attributes, that your work was all laid out for you from the beginning. You signed up for it. Just like your body was all lined up from the beginning. and that all that has gone before has been but a preparation and a fitting of your human personality for that work. Because when you understand, and you guys are peeking in the back, I have never been at a talk where I've had people in the back. Molly, if you come out, I'm going to put this right over your head, all right? You know how much I love you, Molly? She's coming, I know she is. Oh. Now I need her and she's not here. There she is, Molly, I knew you'd come. Okay, got it. Whoop, got it. Get out of here. Got about 10 minutes. The laws of the material world do not apply in the presence of the God realized. When you reach God realization, when you align with your impersonal self, all of the rules and the laws that you think of, like this is where Christ consciousness was. This is the life of Jesus. Someone who lived at a place of God realization. I wrote a lot about it in Wishes Fulfilled. The study of this, the ability to heal instantaneously. Is Anita in the room? Anita Moorjani? Are you here? She'll be speaking, I think, this afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. She wrote Dying to Be Me. I wrote the foreword to that. I mean, her and I have been doing I Am Light seminars. We did one in Portland just a few weeks ago. We're doing a couple in Australia. She will be able to tell you, when you reach God realization, she was dead. She had a few hours left to live. And not only did she come back after a near-death experience, but she saw the light. She was in the light. And she saw her body being healed. And now today, and no one who's ever had end-stage cancer at the level that she had it has ever even survived. Within 5 weeks of when she awoke from the coma, watching her limp body there, which she did not want to even go back into, she was cancer-free. And now today she travels the world speaking about it. She's an amazing, walking, talking, breathing miracle. And we're honored to be on the same planet with her, let alone the same stage. I love her dearly. The moment men, this is from the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, Volume 2. The moment men become free from the belief that they are mere human beings, subject to human laws of life and death, and the limitations which human beings have imposed, that moment they will see that they are free from all human limitations and may become sons of God if they will. The moment they realize they are divine, they are free from all limitations and possessed of the strength of divinity. And man knows that this divinity is the place where being comes most directly in contact with God. Man is beginning to see and know that this divinity is not something to be injected into each from without. He is beginning to know that it is the very life of each and every human being. It's in every one of us. It's in every one of us. It's in every one of us. We all share it. Skye, I'd like to close, almost close, because I have one more thing to say afterward. But I asked her again to learn this song just a couple of days ago. So she's been studying it and says, Dad, I don't know if I know the lyrics. I said, you'll do it. I know you will.
Well,
listen to the words to this song.
It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all have everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of by and by. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up all the eyes. We can all have everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and by.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you, honey. What a voice. She has her beautiful Skye Dyer letting go. So good. That's for you. Congratulations. Listen to Sri Ramakrishna. It's called the salt doll. Imagine a doll made of salt. Once a salt doll went to measure the depth of the ocean. No sooner was it in the water than it melted. Now who was left to tell the depth? There is a sign of perfect knowledge. The seeker becomes silent when it is attained. Then the I, which may be likened to the salt doll, melts in the ocean of existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, and becomes one with it. Not the slightest trace of distinction is left. Become a salt doll. Merge into the ocean. Leave your personal self aside. It's that impersonal self that opens the flowers. And here's one of my great teachers, Swami Vivekananda, in the early part of the 20th century. It's called You Are the Infinite Spirit. All these small ideas that I am a man or a woman, that I'm sick or healthy, that I'm strong or weak, or that I hate or love or have little power, are but hallucinations. Stand up then. Know that every thought and word that weakens you in this world is the only evil that exists. Stand as a rock. You are the infinite spirit. Say it. I am existence absolute. Bliss absolute. Knowledge absolute. And like a lion breaking its cage, break your chains and be free forever. What frightens you, what holds you down, only ignorance of your own true nature. Wow, that's so powerful. Your original nature, Lao Tzu talked about it, your original nature is love, it's kindness, it's bliss, it's service. What frightens you, what holds you down, only ignorance of your true nature, of your blessedness. Nothing else can bind you. You are the pure one, the ever blessed. Therefore, if you dare, stand on that. Mold your whole life on that. You are the one with the eternal soul. Know then that thou art he, and model your whole life accordingly. For those who know this and model their lives accordingly will never more suffer in darkness. It's my vision for my purpose here, to find a way of living from a place of divine love. Having only that come out, no matter how I am squeezed, no matter how humanity is squeezed, to know that ultimately all of that stuff that we call evil is just a non-recognition of our oneness with God. Because Rumi said it as beautifully as anyone, as I leave you this morning. You who seek God apart, that which you seek, thou art. If you want to see the beloved's face, polish the mirror and gaze into that space. Because all of us, we live so often from our ego. The great poet from India, Rabindranath Tagore, writing in his collection of poetry called the Gitanjali, which won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1926, speaking about the ego, he said, I went out alone on my way to my tryst, but who is this me in the dark? I step aside to avoid his presence, but I escape him not. He makes the dust rise from the earth with his swagger. He adds his loud voice to every word I utter. He is my own little self, my Lord. He knows no shame, but I am ashamed to come to thy door in his company. You have a choice, ladies and gentlemen, in every moment of your life. It's one I work on every day. You can either be a host to God or a hostage to your ego. It's your call. God bless you. I love you. Thank you for inviting me.